What if Yoda was reborn with all of his memories? Let's start the story at the beginning of Return of the Jedi. Yoda has just passed away in his hut on Dagobah, leaving Luke Skywalker to be the last of the Jedi. He is over 900 years old, and his last day had arrived. It all went black as Yoda gave himself over to the Force. He opened his eyes and looked around. He's in the Jedi Temple and believes this is the first stage of the afterlife. He leaves the meditation chamber to walk around, and as he does this, he sees faces he hasn't seen in over 800 years. They greet him as Yoda struggles to remember their names. Could the Force be taking Yoda through a tour of his life? He goes with it, continuing his day as a Jedi, training and meditating in the temple. But one day turns into a week with no change. He expected the Force would give him more than this and begin his journey into the afterlife. However, now Yoda realized that he will not be transformed into a Force ghost, but rather he will be reborn as his 75-year-old Jedi Knight self. Yoda realizes the opportunity that he has. He's got a second chance to right the mistakes of his past. He thinks about his old life, the Sith, Darth Sidious, how he failed his entire life. He was the Grand Master. He was meant to protect the Jedi Order, but instead he let it be decimated and destroyed by the Sith. He lived his entire life in ignorance, believing the Sith had been extinguished. However, during these hundreds of years, the Sith were always there, in the shadows, scheming, growing in power, whilst he was none the wiser. Not only had he failed the Jedi Order, he had failed himself. But now he had an opportunity, a chance to change the mistakes of the past. Because Yoda is from a rare species, which has a special connection to the Force, he was the strongest Jedi Knight in his generation. It was time he was expected to take on his first Padawan and begin his journey to become a Jedi Master. But he had to deal with the Sith first. He went to the Jedi High Council chamber, not as the Grand Master, but as a knight, and greeted the 12 esteemed masters. He told them all how he believed the Sith had returned, that the knowledge came to him in a vision, and they were not extinct. However, Master Thonatu detailed how he personally was there when they found the remains of Darth Bane, how he'd lost his mind in insanity, that he had a dark-side-induced psychosis, and he ended the Sith himself. But Yoda knew this must be wrong. This couldn't have been Darth Bane, and Bane must have tricked the Jedi into believing he had died. And they were successful. The Council denied Yoda's request and didn't believe him, and wouldn't assign any resources to back his claim. However, Master Thonatu detailed how he personally was there when they found the remains of Darth Bane, how he'd lost his mind in insanity, that he had a dark-side-induced psychosis, and he ended the Sith himself. Meanwhile, the Sith at the current time were powerful. The Sith Master was named Darth Cognus, a female Itorchi who first served as an assassin before becoming Darth Bane's final apprentice, and later on, the apprentice of Darth Zana, until she killed her in her final duel. She was known for her cold patience, calculating mind, and mastery of foresight, which allowed her to anticipate her opponent's moves. She had just taken on a new apprentice, a human, called Darth Vorkon, whom she had seen potential in. Cognus had a previous apprentice, Darth Millennial, who was a powerful but heretical Dark Lord who rejected the rule of two. He was a mutant three-eyed human, gifted with precognition but obsessed with his own vision of the dark side. He broke away from Cognus's training and founded the cult known as the Prophets of the Dark Side, based on Dromund Kaas, hidden from Darth Cognus, who wants nothing more than to destroy her former apprentice. After being denied resources by the Council, Yoda knew he couldn't give up on the search there. He had friends in the Order, those whom he's been training with his entire life, although for him, they've been dead for hundreds and hundreds of years. His first friend, a female human called Senya. She was powerful like Yoda, and was uniquely gifted with the power of Force Psychometry, a rare gift that allowed her to reach echoes in the Force from objects, sensing past events, emotions, or history, similar to that of Cal Kestis. Yoda's second friend, Braven, a Zabrak male Jedi, was a born warrior, skilled with a lightsaber, and always gave Yoda a challenge in the dueling chambers. His strength was mind control, and he was able to see in the minds of others and manipulate weak-willed individuals to his bidding. Yoda takes them both aside telling them about his fears of the Sith being out there still, and of course, both of them, young and eager Jedi Knights, agree to join Yoda on his hunt for the Sith. Yoda begins by reading the notes from the Jedi archives about the supposed death of Darth Bane and the end of the Sith. They describe how 5 Jedi, led by Master Farfalla, hunted down the Sith on Tython, never to be heard from again, and shortly after, the Jedi Order received a transmission from a healer named Caleb that the Sith were at his camp, wounded on Ambara. And shortly after, when the Jedi arrived, they found Caleb dead and the Sith Bane, who had gone insane with madness, there with the 5 lightsabers of the fallen Jedi. And after Bane was killed, they concluded that the Sith were extinct once and for all. However, we know this wasn't the true Sith Lord Bane. Yoda decides their first stop would be on Tython, as they go to the exact room where the 5 Jedi fought the Sith Lord Bane. When they entered, the 3 of them were hit with its strength straight away. The dark side was strong here, specifically because it had won. A single Sith had defeated 5 Jedi, but Senya told Yoda to hold on, as she focused on her psychometry, listening to the echoes of the past. She listened to the duel, the voices crying out for help, the Sith male calling across the battlefield to another, a female, an apprentice. Yoda's eyes narrowed. He knew it. There must have been another. Always 2 there are, no more, no less. Bane had an apprentice, a female, and there's no record of her in the Jedi archives, and therefore she must have escaped detection. Their next stop was Ambria, at Caleb's camp, the site where the Jedi had supposedly found Bane. Ambria was a barren world, home to those not wanting to connect to the wider galaxy. They landed and could feel the wound in the Force, scarred by darkside energy. They landed at the site of Caleb's hut, the site where the Jedi supposedly found Bane. However, this wasn't where the darkside was strongest. It was 100 meters away. They follow the trail, and Senya gets to work with her psychometry. She reaches out with the Force, listening to the echoes of the past. She hears 2 Sith fighting, Bane and his apprentice, the ones from Tython. She hears chanting voices, the female. The duel is intense, and finally, she hears the female cut down Bane. She turns to Yoda and Braven, telling them what she's heard, but there's more. The female turns to someone else, another female, watching the duel, and deems she will be Darth Cognus, her new apprentice. Yoda thinks on this. It's likely the Sith apprentice of Bane is dead, and her own apprentice, Darth Cognus, has become the true Sith Master and taken on an apprentice of her own. They have something to track down now, a name, and decide to meditate there together. They reach out with the Force, looking for answers, focusing on what they've heard, the name Cognus, the Sith. They use the wound created in Ambria to search for knowledge, as the Force gives them answers. Not a person, not a name, but a place. Dromund Kaas, the ancient world of the Sith. They ready their ship and head to Dromund Kaas immediately. They come out of hyperspace to see Dromund Kaas in the distance, a shadowed, storm-rackled jungle world steeped in darkside energy. No Jedi had been there for hundreds of years, almost thousands, and together, the 3 of them felt it instantly. The darkside was immensely strong here. They entered the atmosphere, and before they could react, there was incoming fire that pierced the shields and compromised their engines. They were going down, and Braven meticulously flew the ship down to make an emergency landing. They crashed with force, all 3 of them tossed around the ship by the impact. Yoda got up first and pulled Shirla back to consciousness. She's okay, as Braven also comes over, but the 3 of them felt it at the same time, and instantly conjured a force bubble to shield themselves as Sith lightning came at them from all angles. Their ship was destroyed as the lightning attacked the bubble, but they maintained their defenses. Yoda countered through the shield, 11 darkside users, led by a human male, one with 3 eyes. His lightning was the most powerful. The darksiders stopped the lightning as the 3-eyed one spoke, telling Yoda that he had foreseen his arrival, that it was futile to resist all of them, that their imprisonment is the will of the Force, that the Jedi must lay down their weapons or die. Annoyingly, Yoda knew he was right. The 3 of them placed their lightsabers on the ground, whilst the 11 darksiders conjured something under their breath, and the 3 Jedi lost consciousness. The 11 darksiders were joined in one room together. The leader of them, the human with 3 eyes, Darth Millennium, told the others that they should study the Jedi. None of them have ever met any before, and they could use this to their advantage. However, a female spoke up, telling them all that it's too dangerous, that they can all sense the power of the Jedi individually, that they're far stronger than any of them. Keeping them here only puts them in danger, and instead should execute them. But Millennium reassures them they have nothing to worry about. His 3rd eye has given him the ability of foresight, and the future shows nothing about the Jedi ending his life, so rest assured that is not a worry. Meanwhile, Yoda, Senya and Braven wake up in their prison cell. They discuss what they've seen. Braven and Senya tell Yoda he was right all along. The Sith really have returned. But Yoda questions these darksiders' power, wondering if they really are Sith. Darth Cognus wasn't here, and other than the 3-eyed human, none of his acolytes were particularly strong in the Force. Furthermore, there were 11 of them, which broke the rule of 2. He expected the line of Bane to be stronger. The Sith that took out 5 Jedi on Tython would crumble any of the darksiders here. Something must be wrong. One of the darksiders came to check up on the Jedi, but as he pulls away the shield on the door to speak to them, Braven acts instantly. He got into the darksider's mind, taking control, and commands him to unlock the door with the Force. The darkside acolyte had no choice but to comply, and after he did Braven's bidding, the Jedi knocked him unconscious and snuck out of the cell. They travelled the hallways quietly and followed the voices they could hear. They peered through the crack in the door, seeing the 10 darksiders talking. The 3 Jedi look at each other and act in a flash. They enter the room as Yoda Force pushes all of them to the ground, and the Jedi recapture their blades with the Force and advance. The darkside acolytes ignite their own sabers to fight back, but it was no use. The Jedi cut them down one after another. They were simply too weak, untrained, undisciplined, and sloppy, until only Darth Millennium was left. The 3 of them point their sabers at Millennium's throat as Yoda questions him, asking who he is and who the Sith Master really is. But of course Millennium doesn't answer, and says he'd rather die than reveal the secrets of the dark side to Jedi. But Braven uses his power, gets into Millennium's mind and memories. He sees Cognus and makes the connection. Darth Millennium must be Cognus's apprentice. He tells this to Yoda, who asks Millennium where Cognus is and why he's no longer at her side. He doesn't want to answer, but Braven's connection to his mind was too strong, and the Sith spits out that she is no longer his master, that her ways of the Sith were not the true beliefs of the dark side, and he left her many years ago. The Jedi look at each other, all on the same page. Yoda asks Millennium to contact her, but he says he can't, that she will come to kill him, which is exactly what Yoda wants, as Braven commands Millennium with the Force mind control over to his computer console to contact Darth Cognus, and they tie Millennium up and hide in the shadows. Hours later, they all feel it. A ship has arrived through the atmosphere. It landed, and 2 beings walked out, a female Sith, no doubt Darth Cognus, and her young Sith male apprentice. Cognus walks up to Millennium tied up, and lifts his chin, telling him that she's been looking for him for a long time, and asks whether his dark side prophets have finally betrayed him. But Millennium laughed, telling her that the Sith ways have truly betrayed her. But Cognus didn't hesitate, and ignited her crimson blade directly through Darth Millennium's chest, enacting her revenge. Millennium's foresight was right. The Jedi wouldn't be the ones to kill him, but rather his old master. Cognus feels a sense of relief after enacting her revenge, and turns to her apprentice, telling him to let this be a warning that he does not fail her. They turn and go to leave as the Jedi come out of hiding, lightsabers brandished. The 2 Sith were caught off guard, igniting their own crimson blades to block. Yoda took on Cognus himself, while Senya and Braven the apprentice. However, the apprentice was too new and too weak. He hadn't completely learned the basics of lightsaber combat. Senya pierced his defenses, cutting his lightsaber in half. They could sense his anger rise, as well as fear creeping into the back of his mind. He raised his hands and goes to cast Sith Lightning, but it failed, as Braven thrust his saber through his heart, killing him. Meanwhile, Cognus and Yoda are facing off, but Cognus attacked Yoda, not from the physical realm, but mentally. She unleashed powerful illusions, designed to tear at Yoda's mind. These weren't simply phantoms, They drew on his deepest fears, forcing him to see horrific visions that felt entirely real. Yoda would momentarily hesitate, fighting not just Cognus, but nightmarish apparitions swirling around him. Her sorcery works like a psychic virus, whispering madness, twisting perception, and trying to overwhelm his willpower. However, this also allowed Cognus to look inside Yoda's mind, expecting to find memories of the past, but instead, they were memories of the future. Through this, Cognus could see the 1,000 years in the future through Yoda's memories. She questioned Yoda out loud, asking how he could have achieved such power to travel back to the past, but Yoda tells Cognus the Force has willed it that he stops her here and now. But she tells the Grand Master, once she defeats him, she'll have captured his memories and can use this to ensure the Sith will rise to power, sooner and far stronger. Cognus summoned enormous, writhing tentacles made of shadow and darkside energy from the ground around her. They lashed out at Yoda, slamming into him with bone-crushing force. They wrapped around his limbs, trying to immobilize and tear him apart, forcing him to divide his attention between breaking free and keeping up with her lightsaber. It looked like she would get the better of him, as two tentacles go right for Yoda's heart, but at the final moment, Senya and Braven jump into battle, destroying the tentacles, and together, the three of them advance, cutting down the tentacles one by one. Yoda breaks the connection Cognus has to his mind, and his mental fortitude allows him to push forward. Braven closed the distance and seized Cognus by the throat, physically lifting her as Yoda thrusts her back with a force push that causes her to bang her head. Cognus shuffled around, coming in and out of consciousness as the Jedi stood victorious. Yoda turned to Braven and Senya, going to congratulate them as he felt it once again. Cognus was in Yoda's mind. She had gathered her will and projected her consciousness outward like a storm of darkness. It wasn't just energy, it was her very being, a tidal wave of hatred, ambition, and raw power. The force of her spirit slammed into Yoda's mind as Cognus attempted to activate her essence transfer. In that instant, Yoda felt his body go rigid, his muscles locked, his vision blurred and dimmed. Inside his mind, it was as if another presence had torn its way into her skull. He felt Cognus clawing through his memories, dragging up moments from his past. It was a battle of identity, and for a moment, it seemed as though Cognus was winning. But Yoda clung to his own identity, the conviction that he was the Jedi Grand Master and would defeat the Sith and not make the same mistakes of the past. With sheer willpower, he forced the spirit of Cognus out of his mind and back into her own body as she lay there, completely unconscious. They take Cognus in handcuffs back to the Jedi Temple. They are cheered as they walk through the temple halls and escort her personally to the Jedi's prison. Next, they go to the Jedi Council and explain everything that has happened. That they discovered Bane had an apprentice, tracked the Sith to Dromund Kaas, and lured the true Sith Master Darth Cognus there. The Council was impressed, and they told Yoda they were wrong to not trust him, that he truly has done a service to the galaxy and Jedi Order. The entire Council stands, ignite their lightsabers, and deem all three of them, Yoda, Senya, and Braven, Jedi Masters, for seeing what the Jedi Council could not and defeating the Sith once and for all. They bowed and accepted their new titles gracefully. Weeks passed, and life was normal for Yoda. He started teaching some classes at the Jedi Temple and spent a lot of time meditating. He thought after this, the Force would have something else for him, a new task or journey to test him. A part of him believed this was all to be a dream, that after he defeated the Sith, then finally he would begin the afterlife. But that didn't happen, and he truly was reborn. He had 1,000 years of knowledge of the galaxy and Jedi Order, and knew he could use this for good. The day would come when he once again would lead the Jedi Order and galaxy into a true High Republic era without the influence of the Sith, and ensure the golden age of the Jedi Order had just begun.
Halloween is coming fast, and at Fantasy Sabers we have put together special Halloween bundles. Each bundle gives you a high quality, fully customizable saber with a belt clip and your own Jedi or Sith robes, but only for a limited time. Order before October 10th for guaranteed delivery.